Have you ever noticed that the people who speak the least are often the ones who see the most? Not the loudest person in the room, not the most confident, not the one constantly trying to be heard. The quiet one. The person sitting in the corner, listening, watching. And somehow, when they finally say something, everyone pays attention. Why? What is it about silence that seems to create a different kind of understanding? And why do some of the most insightful people spend so much of their lives saying very little at all? The answer has less to do with personality than most people think, and much more to do with how they experience reality. Modern society tends to reward visibility. The louder you are, the more confident you appear. The more opinions you share, the more knowledgeable you're assumed to be. We're surrounded by people talking online, talking in meetings, talking in comment sections, talking simply to avoid silence. But something interesting happens when everyone is speaking at the same time. Very few people are actually observing. And observation is where understanding begins. This is something many quiet people discover early. They learn that every conversation reveals more than words: a person's insecurities, their fears, their intentions. Most of it isn't spoken. It's hidden in pauses, facial expressions, changes in tone, tiny contradictions. While everyone else is busy preparing what they're going to say next, the quiet person is paying attention. And that's only part of the story. Because silence doesn't just change how you see other people, it changes how you see yourself. Think about how most people process life. An event happens, a thought appears, and almost immediately they react. They speak, they post, they explain, they defend. There's almost no space between experience and response. But quiet people often create something rare: a gap, a small distance between what happens and how they respond. And inside that gap, reflection becomes possible. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as reflective processing, the ability to observe thoughts before acting on them, to examine emotions rather than becoming controlled by them. And in a world driven by impulse, that's an extraordinary advantage. The interesting thing is, many quiet people aren't silent because they have nothing to say. They're silent because they're still processing, still connecting pieces, still searching for what is actually true. And what most people mistake for hesitation is often depth. But there's a deeper reason behind this, one that explains why silence and wisdom have been linked for thousands of years. Throughout history, some of the most influential thinkers spent enormous amounts of time alone. Philosophers, scientists, writers, spiritual leaders. Not because they disliked people, but because understanding requires uninterrupted attention. The mind is constantly receiving information. Most people never stop long enough to organize it. Quiet people often do. They spend more time noticing patterns, connecting ideas, questioning assumptions. And eventually, they begin seeing things that others miss. Not because they're smarter, because they're looking longer. Imagine two people standing in front of a painting. One glances at it for 3 seconds. The other studies it for 10 minutes. Who sees more? Human behavior works the same way. The longer you observe, the more reality reveals itself. And this leads to a surprising realization. Many quiet people aren't disconnected from the world. They're deeply connected to it, just differently. There is a reason certain people feel exhausted after spending too much time around noise. Not physical noise, psychological noise. Endless opinions, constant stimulation, non-stop distraction. The modern world rewards speed, but understanding often requires slowness. And that's where quiet people become unusual. While others are chasing the next piece of information, they're trying to understand the information they already have. That's a completely different approach to life. And maybe that's why some quiet people seem older than their age. Not older physically, older psychologically. They've spent years observing human nature, watching patterns repeat, seeing how fear disguises itself as confidence, how loneliness hides behind popularity, how insecurity often speaks the loudest. Have you ever noticed that? Sometimes the people demanding attention the most are secretly searching for validation, while the people who need the least attention often possess the strongest sense of self. That's a difficult truth, and not everyone agrees with it, but it's worth thinking about. The real power of quiet people isn't their silence, it's what silence allows them to hear, the thoughts other people run from, the emotions most people bury, the questions many never stop long enough to ask. Who am I when nobody is watching? What do I actually believe? What am I chasing? And why? Those questions can be uncomfortable, sometimes frightening, which is why so many people stay busy, constantly busy, because noise is easier than self-confrontation. But quiet people often spend more time facing themselves, and that's where genuine understanding begins. Not in conversation, not in performance, not in appearances, in honesty. The kind of honesty that exists when there's nobody left to impress. Of course, not every quiet person is wise, and not every talkative person lacks depth. This isn't about personality. It's about attention. The ability to observe before reacting, to think before speaking, to understand before judging. Those qualities can exist in anyone, but silence often creates the conditions for them to grow. And perhaps that's why the quietest people sometimes understand the most. Not because they're trying to appear intelligent, not because they're hiding secret knowledge, but because they've spent more time listening to others, to life, and most importantly, to themselves. The world will always notice the loudest voice first, but understanding has never belonged to the loudest voice. It belongs to the person willing to pay attention, long after everyone else has stopped looking. And maybe that's why some of the most important truths you'll ever discover won't arrive in noise. They'll arrive in silence. If this perspective made you see quietness differently, you'll probably enjoy exploring the hidden psychological patterns that shape the way we think, the way we behave, and the way we understand ourselves. Because sometimes, the people who speak the least are teaching us the most. If you're interested in understanding yourself a little more deeply, subscribe. Because this channel isn't about giving you more noise. It's about helping you hear the thoughts you've been trying to ignore.